What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended podcast. On today's episode, season 4, episode 12, we're actually going to be talking about the one thing to help make your blended family a success. And that's coming up
right now.
Are you a Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level?
Then this is the channel for you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am one of your hosts, Josh, here with the always wonderfully beautiful, awesome, and tan, Miss Grochi. How are you, my love?
I'm good.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this week, we really want to talk about something that we believe is the one thing. It's the thing that is probably talked about in counseling the most. It's talked about in any type of marriage. It's talked about any type of family and any type of work condition. It's what is the most important thing, really, in all of life, really, and that is communication. And especially in blended families, though, talking about communication and understanding the different areas that you need to have good communication is super, super important. So we had to learn a lot of these lessons the hard way.
We did.
Like most blended families. We had to learn most of them the hard way. So do you have anything that you want to add before we get started?
Yeah, we come from the school of hard knocks, okay, when it comes to blended families. So it is the one thing, because a lot of times what you hear at the end of something, people are like, oh, it's just a miscommunication. Or people talk about unmet expectations and then they're mad about it. Well, then they turn around and they're mad. And why are they mad? Because there was unmet expectations. So it wasn't discussed beforehand. Like, so hey, what's your expectations going into this scenario that we're going into? And let's talk about the things. This is how I'm envisioning it's going to happen. And how are you envisioning it's going to happen? And a lot of times, believe it or not, you think your spouse, like even him and I, after being together for 11 years, I just assume he is on the same wavelength as me, and he's like presuming that this specific scenario is going to go in this way, and he has the same ideals as I do. And then after the fact, if I'm mad or upset about something, and I'm like, hey, I'm really mad, I'm upset because this, and this. He's like, oh, I figured it was going to go this way, and it's different. And then it blows my mind because I just think we're going to be the same now, like all the time. We're one.
I think a lot of times, though, just in general,
mind meld.
Just know what I think. I think that's a female thing for the most part. Most women want the men to just know what I'm thinking. But I think in general, though, it's having this weird expectation just in blended families to have, like, if you've been married before, it's almost like you have this weird expectation, like things are just going to blend right together, which has been a big learning experience, big learning curve for us just in our own personal family. So today we want to talk about communication, but where, in what areas can you make communication a priority? So we want to list 4 things for you today. And we're going to kick it off with number 1. And the very first thing that we found super important for communication in our blended family was family meetings.
Yeah, family meetings, we didn't start having them. I mean, I have an idea in my head. How many years in do you think we started having family meetings?
It was at least a couple.
Yeah, I was going to say 3.
Yeah, probably 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is a little foggy right now, but when we started doing it, it was like,
maybe
why didn't we do this
two.
in the beginning?
Maybe 2, because it was when we were living in our apartment and we moved out of the trailer, moved into the apartment.
Yep.
So it was before we moved into this house. And we've been here for 7 years, but it was a couple years before we actually started family meetings. And then after we started having them, we were like, why didn't we do these more often? And we still started those wrong. Like at least we started, right? But then I was like, well, I'm sitting with my kids and he sat with his kids because we wanted our kids to know, like, they're not alone, type of thing. But then what happened is that it started making a divide. Like it made the kids feel like, Big Josh and his kids were like against us, or I don't know, it started causing a divide. So we had to learn with that, but it took a couple years before we started having the family meetings, and it really did leaps and bounds. And we combined them. We started doing them like on Fridays, and we had family fun nights, and we would sit down, we would have a family meeting, we would do a devotional, and then we would do something fun. And it really helped.
It was huge for us.
It really helped out a lot for the kids. It was huge for the family as a whole, for the kids.
Yeah, and I think, understanding as we develop the family meetings is understanding the format of it does make a difference. Christy mentioned, in the beginning, she would sit with her kids, I would sit with my kids. And then even though the intentions were good, it just created more division that way. And so, the suggestion is, there's a couple things that are really important for communications reasons, because communication isn't just verbal, right? There's so much more than there's actually verbal is the smaller portion of all communication, our body language, and how we carry on and stuff. So, as a family, we made sure like, okay, now Christy and I are going to sit together, and our kids fought us on the beginning of that too. They were like, oh, I want to sit on your lap. I want to sit. And we were like, no, you need to sit over here. We're going to have this meeting. And then afterwards, the kids would come and sit with us and we would do those things. But it was important to let the children know, like, we're a united front in the meeting, knowing that all the information is becoming from us together in an agreeable fashion. And that communication was difficult in the beginning because it didn't carry out well, but it eventually did. And there was a few things, that we learned along the way when it came to, formatting for the family meetings. It did make a difference.
Yeah, and it made the kids feel like they had a voice. Mm-hmm. And we did start it out wrong, and I'm not saying that if there's a small child for them to come, that for them not to sit on your lap, that was just something that we had chose to do because they weren't new. We had been doing family meetings
and
previously, and they weren't little anymore. No. But if you're, age appropriate, if they're 2 or 3 years old and that's going to make them feel the safest to actually voice their opinions and stuff like that, then by all means have your family do that. Every
shooing them away.
Yeah, every family is different. But our kids were older, 9, 10 years old, and they were doing it because they didn't really want to have the meeting, or have it be directed at them per se. So
yeah, and giving your children a voice too is an important aspect of the whole thing. What do you have? What do you have to offer? What do you have to say? What do you want to say? And even if they didn't have anything to say, be uncomfortable to silence and sit and just wait and let them know that time is theirs and that they have input into the family. Now, the decisions still come from the parents, but nonetheless, the children should have a voice, and it does make a difference. Like, allowing your children to have a voice into the family makes them feel like they're part of the family, and they already don't feel part of the family in a blended family. So, that's why doing a family meetings just takes your level of communication to a whole different level. We talked about some really hard things. We talked about, things that are going to go on in our house compared to the other parents' houses, like those hard conversations that we've noticed a lot of times blended families, what did you call it? You went in the blog you wrote the other day, you mentioned it like, you didn't call it a solo family, but the mini family, right? Mm-hmm. So the mini family is the bio family within the family, within the blended family. So a lot of times it's easy for those, for me to go to my kids, my mini family, and only talk to them about the things that happen at their mom's house, where really a lot of those things can be discussed as a family. Now, I'm not saying everything, but I'm saying what it does though is it creates a cohesiveness because of the communication within it. So family meetings is a big deal.
Yeah, and you need to understand that communication is listening. That's a lot of times that's overlooked because when we think of communication, us as selfish human beings, we automatically think of talking. And that's only a very small portion of it. Listening is part of it. And you really need to take into consideration, like I was so worried and so stressed all the time that if I don't sit with my kids and I make him and I sit together and all the kids sit together, they're going to feel like I'm rejecting them and that, I don't love them as much as I love him. And I didn't want them to feel that way. But if you think about it, we grew up in a family and we can look back and we can take the same scenario and we can turn it now into a negative or positive thing. So if you sat with your kids and if I sat with my kids and he sat with his kids and we kept doing that growing up, when my kids got older, they could have potentially said, depending on how they looked at it, like, well, my mom never really made me feel like she was actually on his side because she always sat with us. So that made me not want to respect him more. They could blame it on you either way. Sure. But then if you push them to the side and you sit with him, when they grow up, they could say, well, my mom never really made me feel like that. I had a voice in the family because she instantly started sitting with him and wouldn't sit with me. So it just depends on the person's outlook. No matter how they choose to look at it, it could be negative no matter either way that you splice it. So you need to do the beneficial thing or the most important thing, which God says, God, spouse,
then children.
Yeah. So you need to do it biblically if anything, and let God work out the rest with your kids and their thoughts.
Yeah, so I want to talk about just real quick, because it's almost like a side note, but I think it's really important that we mention this. So Christy just talked about the hierarchy, the way that God designs the family, and he doesn't say it only applies to nuclear families. It's blended families as well. And we put God first, then our spouse and our kids, and that's really hard in a blended family, but this is something I think is really, really important. My mom and I actually got in this discussion yesterday. She was over yesterday, and I said, it's important that you put your spouse first, but you as together as a couple, you focus on your children. You focus on your children. And I think that kind of gets disconnected in the understanding the way that it works in blended families is just because you're putting your marriage and your spouse first doesn't mean you're not focusing on your family and your kids, right? It's not like Christy and I are going out to eat every single day without our kids. And it's not like, you're like, well, my marriage is first. I got to work on that, and so we need plenty of it. No, that's not what we mean. And that's not what God is intending. Your kids need a ton of focus and tons of attention, especially as a family. But you have to understand, when you jump to take your kid's side instead of your spouse's side, you're not putting your spouse first.
Yeah.
Right? As an adult, we need to say, hey, wait a minute. I need to pump my brakes here. I need to communicate in the way that God's telling me to. I need to take my spouse into the other room.
That's number 2.
And we need to talk about it.
Don't skip ahead.
Yeah, I won't. But I think it's important that we talk about that one point.
Yeah.
Because I think it gets really misunderstood within blended families about putting your spouse before your children. And it's important that way. It's not saying you're having a lack of focus on your kids, though.
No, I loved that you said that, only because Josh and I, looking back at the beginning, like the first, I would say 8 years. Yeah, probably 8 years. We did everything surrounding our kids.
We did. Everything. Like,
we went on walks with them. We did family fun nights. All free time was with our children. All of it.
Focused on our kids.
And, it wasn't until they were getting a little older, like 3 years ago. I mean, there was a 21-year-old and 2 16-year-olds. Yes.
And a 14-year-old.
And a 14-year-old. They're older. They're teenagers. They don't want to be around you anymore. Yeah. At that time. Freedom. That's when we still do a lot with our kids. We still go, take them out on family outings when they're willing. But we started doing regular date nights or date breakfast days at that time, and not feeling as guilty though either, to ensure that because we did put our marriage, we always made sure we were communicating first, but everything was with our kids.
Yeah.
All the time.
We focused on our family.
Yeah. It was.
We did. And I don't regret any of that.
No.
I don't regret any of it. But what we did do is we made sure that our marriage came first before the kids came. Mm-hmm. And we were able to focus more on our children because of that. That high level of communication, that trust that was developed between her and I, is she knew that I wasn't going to make a decision without her around. She just knew that, And if I did, and it was an accident and those things have happened, is we talk about them promptly and we get back on the same page and we move forward from it. We learn from it. And that right there creates such an amazing bond within your family, because you're already coming into this thing with trust issues anyway.
Yeah.
So, that's just really important. Having family meetings is something that we wish we started earlier, but we're so glad that we at least started when we did. So,
and we don't really have them anymore.
We're beyond that.
And we are. I mean, we don't really have them anymore. I mean, if we go out for it. Yeah, if we go out to dinner, and they're all just sitting here talking to us, it's not really, there's no really hurdles that we're needing to work through as far as blending goes.
Thank you, Lord.
We are blended, and if there's issues that come up, we handle those as they arrive with the people that are within it.
Yeah, it's not really that way anymore.
No.
We have a son that's off to college. We have a daughter that's off and married. We have another son that's graduated, work full time, and then we have one in high school. So it's very different now. So. Yeah. All right, so number 2, another really, really important thing when it comes to communication is, I kind of alluded to it, and Christy put my brakes on, but you need to make sure that you are talking behind closed doors.
Yeah, we call them bathroom talks.
That's what we call them.
Some of our really good friends, Jay and Laura, which I actually like these better, call it car talk. Like, let's hop in the car. Yeah. And what they mean by that is to not actually hop in the car. They mean in the car, neither one of them are allowed to be on their phone because one of them's driving. So the other one's not supposed to get on their phone, and they get a lot of talking out of the way because they're simply focused on each other and nothing else. So they say that. But Josh and I would go into the bathroom, and we've said this before in other talks, podcast is that we'd go in the bathroom, and a lot of times the first few years, the bathroom talks were hours.
3-4 hours.
long. And then as time went on and, we revisited mainly the same 4 subjects all the time, they would lessened and lessened and lessened because we could be like, okay, we keep having the same debate about the same things, just different time and day, right? So it's like we could jump. Okay, this is where we are again. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just jump to here. Okay, yeah, we're done. So they got shorter and shorter and shorter, but it takes years, and that's what a lot of, Tony Robbins' quote has been coming up a lot to me in my brain lately about people underestimate what they overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in 10.
Mm.
And I think probably it's because Josh and I are coming up on our 11-year anniversary. Like it's real soon, like in a month.
Yeah.
And I'm really thinking about, like, sometimes I'm like, man, we need to come farther. We need to do more. We need to do these things. But then I'm like, wait a second. Because I'm thinking from a year ago, we should be so much farther ahead in our life. But if I think 10 years ago, we are like
light years
ahead. And so that's the way that we have to think. Like, yeah, we should always be thriving to be 1% better every single day. We should be striving to be better. We should be doing research, reading books, educating ourselves to be better, having talks with one another behind closed doors to make our relationships stronger and better. But don't expect it in a year. I've, in our last blog or a couple blogs before, I said the kids are usually a year behind the parents as far as blending. And it takes on average 4 to 7 years for a blended family to blend. Mm-hmm. So it's like your kids then, if it takes you 7, it means it's going to take them 8.
Or more.
Or more. So it's like, don't think that a year from now or 2 years from now, you're going to be blended and you're going to be good. It's not the way that it works. It isn't.
No, and a lot of the talk behind the closed door thing was really important for us because, we needed to make sure because Christy and I are very type A personalities together.
I'm not.
Oh, not at all.
I'm an introvert.
And so I can tell when she's like digging her feet in, right? And about assert her dominance upon Mr. Grochi, myself. And as a guy, I'm like, no, we need to get this straightened out right now. And which she doesn't like that. So going into bathroom talks, we had to really kind of work all that out. Like, I'm not trying to overthrow you. Well, I'm not trying to overthrow you. Stop trying to sell me on this stuff. I'm not trying to sell. I'm trying to explain it to you. And we had to go back and forth so many times. But the value in that was really concreting and understanding that we were able to talk things through and we were able to do it in privacy, not in front of the kids. There's nothing worse than being passive aggressive to each other in front of your children. Children aren't stupid. They know exactly what's going on. They can feel, it's like they can palpitate the stress in the room when parents are not in a good way. Christy and I have been upstairs in our house here and our boys are downstairs and we will be in a whisper argument where it's like, trying to be quiet. And the kids will come upstairs and then as soon as they come upstairs, they look at us and they're like, okay. And they turn to go right back downstairs. And they didn't even know, but they know, right? So it's blatantly obvious. And so we say talk behind closed doors is super important. Why? Mainly because it's important that you just get all this stuff out so you guys can get on the same common ground and you get to talk about important things that you don't need to involve your children in. They don't need to be part of it.
Well, and it's not like we're trying to get you to do advance notice to plan these things, okay? We didn't sit around and talk about hey, when we start to disagree, we need to make sure that we go into a bathroom. We didn't talk about that. We did say we do not ever want to fight in front of our kids.
Yes.
We do not want to talk bad about the exes in front of the kids. And we don't ever want to
well said.
And we will never call each other a name, harsh name. Now, I have said to him before, man, you are really just being a jerk right now. You are coming across as a jerk. But I've never been you are a jerk or you're a butthead or anything like that. And he's never called me a name either.
No,
but the very first bathroom talk, I would bet to say this was the very first one. Because when we first got together and moved in together, we lived in a trailer.
Was it during the movie?
Yeah. It was in a mobile home. And we only lived there for 6 months. So we were there. And this was the first one that I remember. And our kids all remember this.
Still remember.
So we were doing, like, we were going to have movie night, and all the kids were
Family
getting
movie
getting their blankets and their sleeping bags out to lay down on the floor in the living room and get on a couch and all this stuff. And I don't even remember what it was about.
I don't either.
But him and I were like out, right? And we go into the bathroom, and we were in there for like 3 or 4 hours.
We were in there for 2 movies. The kids told us.
We come out, they're all picked up. They're all in their bedrooms, all this stuff. And we were like, hey, you know, we're sorry, guys, and stuff. And they were like, they still talk about that to this day. They were like, you guys were in there the entire time.
Yeah.
We were just sitting out there. We didn't know what to do, type of thing. Because that was awkward for them. Like, we were newly together. We had been together less than 6 months.
Yeah.
And they were all like, we're trying to do like this great family bonding time. And then we leave, you know, and go into another room. So it affected them so much that they remember that from 11 years ago. When I just asked my 17-year-old the other day, when he remembered when we first moved in here about 7 years ago, we asked him to go get dog food, and there's a step to go up to where we kept the dog food, and he got the dog food and was coming out, forgot there was a step, fell, was actually crying, like very upset, spilled dog food everywhere. He doesn't remember that. And that was 7 years ago.
They remember the bathroom talk.
They remember the
But they don't remember what the bathroom talk was about, which is important.
Way to spin that, babe.
That's right, which is important.
We don't remember what it was about.
No, we don't.
And we were there.
But I would say, right, if we started getting into some kind of verbal altercation in front of the kids, they would have remembered everything that was said. Yeah. They would have carried it. They'd have been like, that's right, this lady's crazy. Or, yeah, that's right, this guy's a jerk. I mean, that's the way that they wanted to. I mean, kids want to do those things. They want to not like the other parent. Like, they want to. They want every reason to. That's why when you're communicating, you need to hold it. Like, not passive aggressive, not dirty looks, like not those things. Like, hold it and say, let's take a walk. Let's get in the car. Let's whatever you want to paraphrase it as, you know, and get in the bathroom or wherever and talk only behind closed doors. So that's number 2. Yeah. Number 3 is never assume anything.
We all know what assume means.
Do we?
If you haven't heard, you should Google it. Right.
This is a Christian podcast.
It makes a donkey out of you and me. That's what it does. But it's true though, because I still use that word. Like, afterwards, if I'm upset about something, I will go up to him and I will be like, I was assuming that you would do this, this, and this. Now, in my business world, I've learned to, because your boss will be like, well, you know, you shouldn't assume. Like, bosses like to say that. I would say that, right? So now I don't use that word anymore. I would say my expectation of this was that you were going to boom, boom, boom. And what was your thoughts on it? I don't use the word assume anymore, but I can with him because it's safe, you know?
It is. But the reason why we say never assume anything is because we can't be inside each other's heads, right? And a lot of times when we're coming from another relationship, right, we expect, like, as a guy, right? This is a guy, very typical guy thing, right? She's like, why don't you tell me I'm pretty? Well, you know you think I'm pretty, you know, that you're pretty. Why don't you tell me you love me? You know that I love you. Like, you know that. Like, you ought to know that, right? But a female is like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do these things? And it's like, you know, all of those types of things. And so the high level of assumption is so dangerous, because when we're assuming and those assumptions aren't coming true, we then think the person doesn't care. And then if they don't care, now we start to get bitter, and that causes some type of major division within our family. So these nasty things of assumptions are dangerous.
Well, yeah, in women, we can start to feel like we're a blow-up doll. Okay, like, it's like, oh yeah, I come home from work, and oh yeah, we're gonna clean and do all this stuff, and then we get in bed, and it's like, roll over, honey. And you haven't said anything nice to me all day or made me feel good all day. No, like, you need to tell me I'm pretty. You need to pet me sometimes. You need to touch my hand and be holding my hand and staring in my eyes, stuff like that. And he's no different. Don't let him fool you. Every day he cooks, okay? And every day I barely even have a bite in my mouth. And he's like, is it good? And then I'm like, yes, babe, it's good. And some days I'm like,
because I don't want to assume.
You know it's good. Okay? You know it's good. I'm eating it. First off, if it was bad, I would not eat it. I'd bite it and say, this is gross. But it's the same thing, right? Like, he wants to know, because he actually puts a lot of work into this food. He makes mental notes. I swear his brain is a Rolodex still. It's like just has all this information because he keeps track of, okay, she said she really liked this, or she said she liked the green peppers on this, or she likes this better than this. And like he keeps track of all that stuff. And he worries a great deal about me not getting bored. Like he really doesn't want to make me the same thing too much because he doesn't want me to get bored of it. Mm-hmm. When really he could probably make me like these little cupcake pizzas that he makes. He could probably make them for an entire week. Then he could probably make regular little pizzas for an entire week. He can make the tacos for an entire week. He could make his mac and cheese cauliflower stuff that he makes for an entire week. Meatballs for an entire, like he'd probably do that and I'd be fine because I love all of his food. So I appreciate though how much work you put into it. And I shouldn't assume that he doesn't need to hear that his food's good because he's good at everything he does. Okay.
That's not true. But the assumption thing works both ways, right? So she assumes that, but I also don't want to assume just because she likes one thing, she doesn't want it every day, or I don't want to assume that, that I think that she knows. Now, I'm very calculated and I like to plan things. Like I'm very
He's a chess player.
I am a chess player, right? At heart I am. So, but I don't want to just assume things. So I try to collect as much information as I can to make sure that I have a good educated guess. And I'm telling you guys, when this backfires on me, it backfires in a major way because I am sold 1,000% on that. I know for a fact with the highest level of assumption of all planning that I know, and then it completely blows up in my face. And Rarely, but it does, right? And that's my fault because I'm assuming of it. And we have to be careful, especially because women typically have much higher expectations of us than what we do of them.
And we have many personalities.
And that's
and you guys forget that sometimes.
And that's typical, but we don't want to just assume. Like it's such a dangerous thing, especially in blended families. Like I can't assume that she's going to be mad at me if I do something a specific way. Like I can't assume that. The best thing to do is to talk to her about it now. It gets old. I get it. Does she want to tell me every day that she likes my food? No, she doesn't want to do that. Does she get annoyed sometimes? Probably.
Sometimes.
Probably. And that's okay, though. It's okay because there is no assumption on that, and she loves me. And we keep that level of communication nice and high, so none of that stuff happens. And she'll tell you a lot of times, okay, so in the beginning of our relationship, let's just rewind to there because she loves this story. I got her for a present for something. I got her to go and get to go to the salon to get something. I don't know if it was like her nails done or a massage done, something, right? It was when we lived in the trailer. Mm-hmm. Okay. And she came home and I was playing a video game, right? And she came home. Do you remember that? And I'm sitting in the chair playing the video. You don't remember that? Mm-mm. So I'm playing a video game, right? And she came home and she started talking to me and I said, hey, I'm right in the middle of the game, And she got mad. She got super, super mad. And I didn't think nothing of it. And then afterwards,
you can tell the golf story.
And then I don't know.
That was similar.
Story. But anyways, so I just, hey man, she went, she had a good time. She came back. She just assumed I assumed she was going to come in. She'd be fine. No, she wanted my attention. She wanted me to ask her how she went. Like, look at my nails, like pay attention to me after I came home.
Massage.
Or massage, right. But that level of assumption was wrong. Like it completely backfired on me. Like I cared more about the video game than I did her. And I didn't. But as a guy, I'm in the middle of something, right? And I need to concentrate on that at hand and finish it. And that's a weird level of assumption. And that's a dangerous communication thing. What golf thing? You mean when we went golfing for Father's Day?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Because he assumed like, you don't talk in his backswing.
I didn't say it like that.
Yes, you did.
I did.
I have witnesses.
I was in another golf cart about 20 feet ahead, and I turned around and I'm like, hey, you can't, because he was backswinging. And I'm like, you can't talk in the backswing.
And then what did he turn around and say? I don't care. Doesn't bug me.
What? Did I say
Luke?
That?
Luke.
Luke did. Yeah, the person that was swinging the club. Yeah. I don't care. I'm like, thanks. That super helps my case. Like, really? I think because he could feel the tension.
You were assuming that Luke cared, and you were correcting or, disciplining your wife under the assumption that Luke cared.
There wasn't a discipline, right? But it was a correction, and I didn't handle it very well. I didn't. I should have waited till after Luke was gone, and I could have went over to her and I said, hey, for golf, it's like you don't talk in the backswing. Whatever. I could have handled it much better. But I assumed, right? And yes, and that was wrong. Never assume anything. We'll move on to number 4. 4 and the final 4, right? And I really love this one. We didn't actually start doing this till way later. But I actually love this last one.
That's because it took him a long time to convince me to do it.
Yeah, I was going to tell that story. So the 4th thing, high level of communication within a blended family is you need to share a family calendar. Share a family calendar. Listen, with technology today, you don't need to have a written calendar in your home or in your purse, because guys usually don't do that. You can have digital calendars and you can share them amongst your devices. If you're an Apple user and your spouse is, like, you guys can share a calendar and it gets updated. We do it with our family too. But you want to talk a little bit about the family calendar?
Yeah, our kids are all on it. And so if I put something in, our family calendar is green and then our marriage calendar is orange.
Our couple, yeah.
Our couple one. And so some things, if we're planning a family outing or someone's birthday, I'll put it in the calendar and I click family, and everyone in the family gets an alert, and then it gets added to their calendars. So it shows, not that they all check it, but they all still get the alert.
They're aware.
So then at least when I bring it up, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, like typically our lives are between 6 to 8 weeks out. And when I bring it up to them later, like a week ahead, so to prepare the attitudes, they at least have a recollection that, oh yeah, I think I got a thing for that. But I was the person that I really liked having a planner. I really liked having a paper planner and carrying it around with me. And for a long time, when I finally started using the digital calendar, I did both still.
Yeah, you did for a short period of time.
I did. And now I live and die by that calendar that's in our phone. Yeah. And as soon as someone says they want to do something, I go in and I'm checking our availability and our calendar and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and it's really actually been a great thing. So when it comes to changing things within the calendar, it sends me an alert. Now, I don't remember when we decided like we were going to do it together. I don't know. I think we did right off the bat, to be honest with you. We didn't.
You were trying to convince me because you used the calendar.
I was, but I'm saying when you first started using the digital calendar, did you start using it together? Did we start using it together right off the bat? Yeah. And I just think that ended up being a really good thing. But overall now, like we have our kids in a calendar, we have ourselves in a calendar, but not everybody has old enough kids to have phones and digital calendars,
that's
right?
True.
Which is fine. You should still do it with your spouse, though.
Yeah.
And the main reason why we started doing it, that I think that really picked up steam, is because we kept missing family or a date day for us, date night, right? And we're like, we need to get this on the schedule. Like, we need to make sure that we schedule time because something always came up, right?
That was more important.
That we would think that was more important, it would take precedence. And we're like, no, we need to start scheduling this. So then the digital calendar really became something like, it's in the calendar. Now it's gotten to the point to where Christy's saying we're 6 to 8 weeks out. When someone asks us like, oh, can you guys, can we do something on Saturday? Christy's like, we can in about 6 to 8 weeks. Let me look, so we get on the calendar now. But we've gotten just so much of using our calendar. Like, it gives us a really good reason at times to say, no, I'm sorry. Because we have important things planned, and everybody within our family knows that, and they can count on it.
Yeah.
It just creates a real good, harmonious communication within our family, and it's an easy thing to do. Even if it's like, Christy gets her nails done, whatever, on a Saturday morning. She goes super early at 8 a.m. I don't ever have to
worship
wonder.
Band practice.
Yeah, but I never have to wonder, though. All I got to do is pull up my own phone, pull up the calendar, and say, oh, what's going on this day? Like, I never have to wonder and say, what's Christy got going on this weekend? What's blah, blah,
I usually
blah.
have more going on than he does on the weekends.
Yeah, because, you do. Because she, goes to the salon, gets her hair done, gets her nails did. All these girl things that I
go get pedicures with my grandma.
Yep, you do that. Or you have worship band practice on Saturday mornings.
Or breakfast.
Or she'll go breakfast with girls, things like that. And I don't do those things because I would rather not. So I don't. Which is really nice. And I can't sing, and I don't get pedicures. I got one time, and it was dumb, actually.
It's not dumb.
It was for me. It just wasn't enjoyable. So it's really important that we take our communication, not just think, oh, I just need to be able to talk more. And it's not that. Women talk enough, right? They talk twice as much as what men do.
You need to be able to understand more.
In a workday, but that's not the point, right? It's not about more words. It's about healthier communication at the right time. So just on a review, 4 things that you really need to concentrate on in a blended family for communication. Family meetings. If you don't do them now, start doing them. And you want to do it when all the kids are there and your spouse. Number 2, talk behind closed doors. All communication that involves the family first should go through the spouses, right? Through the couple first, and everything should happen behind closed doors. No passive aggressive. And then number 3, never assume anything. Do not just assume that your communication is awesome and that your partner knows what's going on all the time. Not true. And then number 4, get a shared family calendar. Even if you don't have kids old enough, do it with your spouse. It's important. Communication is the pinnacle portion. It's the one thing that if you take it to the next level in your relationship, it will make a massive impact in your family.
Well, and it will make a difference too, especially in blended families, because typically, especially if both people have children, there's different visitation schedules usually.
So much.
And then with holidays coming up, it's easier if it's already in the calendar when you have your kids, when you guys have your spouse's kids, to go through and look, and you're trying to plan with his family or your own family, like a family Christmas or a Thanksgiving, and you both have to share, like to be able to communicate with your in-laws, and your extended family, like, hey, this is a day that we have all of our kids. Is it possible that we do something as a family on this specific day to celebrate Christmas or to celebrate Thanksgiving, things like that? So it's when everything starts getting chaotic, like normally maybe you can keep your visitation schedules and you can tell in your head like, 4 weeks from now on this day, I know we're going to have all of our kids, so we can plan that. But when chaos kicks in with holidays and, work schedules and it's your busy season and things like that, you are scatterbrained a little bit. It's a lot easier just to be able to pull up your calendar and pre-plan things. Like, okay, I don't know what my in-laws are planning for Christmas. I don't know if they're doing special days or special things because they have a bunch of kids, or what my family's doing. Let's talk about this now so we can get all these kinks and everything worked out now, if possible.
Sure.
Not everybody in your family, your extended family, can work around your blended family schedule, and you need to learn not to get upset about that too. That comes down to the communication.
And nothing is more complicated schedule-wise than a blended family schedule, because your blended family isn't just your immediate family. It is 5 other families attached to you guys. Yeah. And so, like Christy said, you start getting into holidays, school schedules, work schedules, time off, vacations, nightmare. I mean, all these things, right? So understanding that if you can get everybody on the same page, communication-wise, the earlier, the better. It's an easy thing to do. I know you can get Google Calendar. Even if you don't want to use Apple, you can use Google Calendar. And those are shared too. We do that through the church that I, on staff at church. So you can do those things. You just have to be intentional about it. And it's so important. And it seems minuscule. It really does. But I can tell you, for us, it made a massive impact on us. Massive impact. So the one thing, it's communication. You have to be intentional with it. And if you, do get intentional with it, that I guarantee the success of your blended family, it will change. I mean, rapidly too. So
yeah, because we were agreeing to things without talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like if his mom called him up and said, I want you guys to come over and do something, he'd just dedicate our whole family to it that day and not talk to me, or vice versa. Like if my grandma wanted us to do something and I just am like, oh, we're all going to this. It's disrespectful, number one. But number two, that's why it comes down to the communication, family meetings, because you guys talk first and then talk with the family and try to work it out and not commit your family. Like overcommit your family too causes added stress. And the last thing a blended family needs especially is added stress about something that's, you can prevent.
Yeah, we really want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you so much. If you need anything from us, please, we're here to support. We want to. Don't forget, we do have a private Facebook group. So if you want to join that and join in on the conversation in a private way.
And if you want to get our blog.
Yep. And we have a blog as well. Christy started here just recently, which is also nice, so you can get that weekly as well. You can get on. Yeah, you can get on the email list as well. I'll leave some links down inside the chat box with that. So we want to thank you guys for being here. Season 4, episode 12. We'll see you guys next Tuesday at 7.
Bye.